Hello everyone, this is part 43 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe. Remember Shizune. I made you a promise and I shall see it through, Kuro whispered just loud enough for Shizune to hear. Upon hearing those words, the brunette's eyes shot open and suddenly remembered what Kuro had said before their first meeting had ended. That he would have his fun with her before he cared, and he'd make her watch. Now, more than ever, Shizune wanted to get up and help her master, but the cruel Kuro slammed his foot down on the back of her head and pinned her face first in the dirt. The smiling Kuro was delighted to hear an enraged and hateful bellow from Tsunade when he did that, yet she dared not to move since it possibly meant the grisly death of her pupil. Kuro, you monster, Tsunade yelled as she clinched her fist to the near point of break through her skin. Let her go. The red-haired villain looked back down at Shizune. Oh, don't worry about this one. In all actually, I have no interest in this piece of pathetic weakling trash, he said before lifting his foot off of her and marching toward Tsunade. The blonde woman fell into a prepared fighting stance and Kuro stopped directly in front of her. It's just you and me now, kid. Kuro stared admirably at Tsunade's unmoved fighting form. She didn't seem unfaltering at all, not in the least. To Kuro's eyes, she seemed completely prepared for this entire ordeal despite her situation, as though she readied everything she ever was into this singular moment. The red-haired fiend's smile grew and grew. Well, you seem awful excited to get things started, don't you, Tsunade-chan? Kuro said as he looked down at his female opposer. With the great audacity that she had developed in her lifetime, Tsunade smirked. I've never been more excited more about anything in my life. Ya festering s-head, she lashed out. Kuro's smile dropped when he heard that remark. The day where you finally hit the ground, hard. Kuro scoffed loudly, you little fool. Do you actually believe that you have what it takes to best the likes of me? You saw the results of our most recent struggle. Neither you, or your colleagues combined could best me in battle, and you think that you can just stand there and talk to me like that, he roared with anger. Tsunade flexed her hands, cracking her knuckles as she solidified her stance. That's exactly what I think, Kuro, she said with a nervous smile. You humans and your stubborn arrogance. I will make you rue the day you mocked me, kid, unless, of course, you turn tail and head for the hills while you still have legs to do so, the devil threatened. The blonde Sanin scoffed, me, run from you. Stop, you're making me choke, she retorted. Despite her defiant rebuttals, it seemed like Tsunade did a good job of hiding her doubts. Kuro was looking mighty pissed off at the moment. 20 years pass and you still have that infuriatingly petulant attitude, Kuro growled before growing silent for a time. Magnificent. Perhaps I can salvage a greater deal of entertainment from this little show than I originally thought. Kuro stepped closer and the now sweating Tsunade hesitated, stiffening her stance. HMPH. Would have been wiser to back off right there, but at least you haven't gotten boring. After all, I rather enjoy watching my food squirm for survival, Kuro hissed before taking his fighting stance as well. There they stood, neither moving a muscle. The tension rode high in the sky for both fighters as they stared each other down. Their level of focus was so intense that it could be felt by the others nearby. It was as though they were frozen in time, waiting for the moment of truth. With the anticipation grinding up within them both, their little standoff was nearing its end. Tsunade grew a tad more nervous when she witnessed Kuro's devilish aura slowly resurface again. Out of impulse, she rose her chakra levels as quickly and smoothly as she could muster. Now, with a flow of rising power swirling around the area, this was sure to be an epic life or death struggle. Out of random occurrence, a piece of rubble from one of the many large rocks near them crumbled off and hit the ground. To Tsunade, that was pretty much the bell as her eyes widened and her body reeled back before launching herself at Kuro, causing several chunks of the ground to shatter away. With her nervousness now completely gone, the blonde Sanin threw her fist back, tensing every muscle in her body as she readied her assault. With a roar, Tsunade launched her fist at Kuro and was surprised to see him take directly to the face. His body bent backwards when the attack connected before he came right back with a punch of his own. Tsunade dodged the assault successfully before latching onto Kuro's arm, yanking it, along with his torso downward and crashed her knee directly into his face. With the opportunities given to her, Tsunade unleashed her sly dose of lethal attacks, aiming directly at her enemy's pressure points with her monstrous strength. Kuro seemed unable to defend against the menagerie of attacks that came his way, his body steadily growing more and more distorted as it continued. Tsunade readied her fist again and drove it directly into Kuro's stomach, reeling him over in pain. Without wasting a moment, the blonde Sannin pushed hard into his abdomen with her chakra and sent him flying off on a low trajectory. However, Kuro managed to stop his little flight trip when he forced his feet into the ground to stop himself. When he did, he remained where he was and stared at the ground. She's definitely become a little stronger than I thought, he thought to himself. Before his thoughts could progress, he looked up only to have a knee driven into the center of his face by an airborne Tsunade. Using her other leg for leverage, Tsunade pushed herself off of Kuro and flipped a full 180 degrees with her leg lifted skyward. With all of that pent-up momentum, the hazel-eyed Kunoichi heel dropped Kuro's cranium as hard as she possibly could. You can only imagine the resulting affect that it had. With an enormous portion of the ground destroyed, Tsunade leaped from out of the risen debris and stared into it, waiting. Much to her expectations, the hulking monster slowly emerged from the rubble and marched out of the settling debris, patting himself of any stray dust on his tattered coat. As Tsunade predicted, Kuro seemed unaffected by the last attack, much to her dismay. She clenched her jaw as she tried to figure out another plan of attack. Kuro stopped walking when he was but a few meters from Tsunade and crackled the joints in his end before taking in a deep breath of air. I've gotta hand it to you, Tsunade-chan. If I hadn't street USD your flow of chakra while I fought you beforehand, I wouldn't have been able to counteract my own chakra to any of it. So that's why you're so damn strong, eh? Impressive, Kuro said as he held his aching jaw. Tsunade frowned. You mean it took you that long to figure it out? How did you manage to make it in the world? She remarked sarcastically. As a natural response, Kuro smiled deviously. Clever, till the end. How exciting. I will very much enjoy your suffering as much as possible, he growled with ravenous resolve. HN. Take your best shot, Kuro, the blonde Sannin said, despite her hidden fears. The red-eyed devil flapped his coat back and resumed his fighting stance. Yes. I will, don't you worry yourself about that, he said. Tsunade discreetly began scanning the area for strategic purposes when she spotted the bound Jiraiya and Orochimaru from a far distance. Fighting this freak by my lonesome is gonna be tougher now with those idiots bound to that rock. At this rate, I won't get anywhere if he doesn't K me, and if this isn't settled here and now, we may never be able to stop him. I have to figure out a way to get those two free or this whole ordeal would be in vain, Tsunade thought to herself before reassuming her own stance as she faced her sworn enemy. Out of the fray of the battle, a deathly worried Shizune watched helplessly on her hands and knees, hoping against hope that her master could pull through. Her doubts were strong though. Despite her best wishes and prayers, Shizune feared the absolute worst. To make things worse, she couldn't get Kuro's horrid promise out of her head. I'll have my fun with her, before I K her, and I'll make you watch, Shizune. The brunette Jonin began shivering uncontrollably as she watched, wishing that she could just help her master in any way she could. Those wishes were quickly vanishing though, as the situation was seeming increasingly hopeless. Just then, Shizune remembered one important detail. With a gasp, she shot to her feet. Of course, she shouted before dashing off to a certain mound of stone, I have to free them. Her trip was short, and once she had arrived, she saw just what she expected. The two Sannin looked at her and then looked back at the action. Why are you here, Shizune? Jiraiya questioned. You know that your master forbid you to come. Ugh. Shizune huffed, snapping her focus back to the task at hand. I'm going to free you too. With that statement, Shizune approached the two Sannin, but before she got any closer, a voice rung out from her flank. No. Don't advance. Stopping when she heard that, Shizune turned to the source and saw none other than Kabuto. It's you, Shizune said. You may want to keep your distance from him, the silver-haired Otonin warned before picking up a rock from the ground. But Tsunade-sama can't do this alone. She needs hell. Shizune was unable to finish her sentence when Kabuto tossed the rock toward the trapped Sannin, resulting in its immediate disintegration via the powerful red energy. Shizune's voice caught in her tea when she saw this, and held her chest to calm her quickened heartbeat. Oh, she said. Kabuto pushed up his glasses. Kuro's made doubly sure that nothing stands in his way now. It was all carefully planned, he said. Shizune harbored a downcasted look. What do we do then? Just stand here and do absolutely nothing, she questioned. It would seem so. If we try to resist, we'll just get in her way. Tsunade-sama is on her own, Kabuto said before staring in the direction of where the action was taking place. Mimicking this gesture with a look of great worry, Shizune started biting her thumbnail. But there must be something. Anything we can do, she hoped. Jiraiya sternly concentrated on Tsunade's progress. You'd better stay alive long enough for us find a way out of this. Just remember, if that freak even manages to get one of us down, his freedom in this world is guaranteed, he thought. Konoha, a perfectly serene Sakura and a vastly satisfied Ino stepped out of the Haruno household after enjoying Futaba's irresistible dumplings, and other things that aren't worth mentioning, Snickers. Both females bid the pink-haired mother goodbye before closing the door behind them and walking off to take a stroll within the village. So where to, Sakura-chan? Ino asked with energy and life in her voice. Sakura's eyes widened for about 2 seconds before she blushed and stared at the ground with a smile on her face. What's the matter? Ino pried. Nothing. It's just that, it's been years since you called me that, Sakura whispered out, feeling unusually flattered. The platinum blonde smirked before walking a little ahead. Well, I figured I have a perfect reason for doing so now, she said. Sakura nodded to Ino with content before joining her. Side by side, both kunoichi set off on their walk. But it wasn't long before they were interrupted by a certain Uchiha. There you are, Sakura. You ready for training today? Sasuke asked with his usual attitude. Oi, Sasuke-kun. Actually I thought I'd spend a little time with Ino-chan before we got started, Sakura said with half-faint blush. Ino mimicked the blush and they both slightly looked away from Sasuke. Normally, the raven-haired Uchiha would simply dismiss the situation and carry on about his business, but something seemed a little altered. First off, the girls in front of him were very close to one another, closer than usual, at least. The suffix to Ino's name was also enough to ignite a curious spark. But when he spotted their hands joined together, yeah, that was an eyebrow raiser. He street USD the two females for only a few seconds with his blanked expression. Well, that's fine. When you're ready to get down to business, you'll know where to find me, Sasuke informed before walking off in the direction of Team 7's training ground. Ino stared at Sasuke's fading form in the distance. Geez. Have you noticed that Sasuke-kun is starting to train as hard as he did at the academy? I haven't seen him this dedicated in a long time, almost like he's getting ready for something big. Ya know, she said. When she didn't get a response, Ino turned to her girl and saw a worried, sick expression on her face. Ino instantly became concerned. Hey, what's the matter now? You look ill, she said. Without warning, Sakura's expression became serious before she dashed off after Sasuke in a hurry. Confused, Ino watched as Sakura caught up to the Sharingan-wielding shinobi. Sasuke-kun, Sakura called out. Sasuke turned around to face Sakura without responding. He simply stared at her, waiting to hear what she wanted. He saw hesitation in her eyes and wondered what could have triggered such a sudden disposition from the pink-haired genin. His question was soon answered before he could ask it. Look, there's something we need to talk about. It's urgent, Sakura said. Again, Sasuke rose an eyebrow at this. An urgent matter, eh? Sasuke thought to himself, trying to study Sakura's worried expression. Ino later approached the pair with a questioning expression of her own. Sakura-chan, what's with you? You're acting sorta weird, she said as she crossed her arms beneath her chest. There's something I need to talk to both of you about. Come with me, the jade-eyed female instructed before walking in the direction that her teammate was. Exchanging stares of question, Sasuke and Ino followed Sakura. Meanwhile, atop the Hokage monument, Kurenai Yuhi and Asuma Sarutobi stood upon the Sandaim's head, staring into the horizon. They seemed focused into the wind, as though waiting for something. I don't like this, Asuma, Kurenai admitted with a strong concern in her voice. They've been gone for too long. Relax, Kurenai. You're worrying too much. If there's anyone who can find the legendary Tsunade, it's Jiraiya-sama. He'll be back, and we'll have our new cage in no time, Asuma reassured. The crimson-eyed Kunoichi's brow furrowed a bit. It's not that. I'm worried that Hemit have found her first. How can I relax knowing that Kuro is out there doing God only knows what, while we sit here and do nothing? For all we know, that festering bastard might have killed them for the sake of vengeance, she grimaced. Asuma took a drag from his ever-present cigarette. Don't think like that. The Sannin won't be taken down so easily. Don't get me wrong, I remember what happened 20 years ago, but times have changed since then, and Kuro is comparatively weak now, not like before, he said. The raven-haired Jonan looked downcast. I understand that, but I know what you mean. We can't afford to lose either one of them. They're the only ones who can stop him, the dark-skinned Jonan proclaimed. A moment of silence loomed over the two as they continued to gaze into the horizon. That is until they both snapped their attention back down to the village itself. Oh, and there's another thing that's been bothering me too, Kurenai said with a scowl. Yeah, same here. There are two of them, no three, and they're good at masking their chakra. Who do you think they are? Asuma said. Kurenai's scowl deepened. I'm not certain about one of them, but I'm almost positive I know exactly who the other two are, she said. With that, both Jonan went into yellow alert and leaped off of the stone monument of the village leaders. Team 7 training ground. Ino stared at Sakura like she just escaped from the asylum while Sasuke simply stared at the ground, thinking. Okay, so let me get this straight. This Kuro thing that you're telling us about was a totally unstoppable monster that nearly wiped out every living person in this village, and not even the Sannin could stand against him, Ino questioned. Sakura nodded. That's right, but if it weren't for the Sannin, we most likely wouldn't have been born. None of us, she grimaced. Ino gave the pink-haired Kunoichi a non-believing look. Who in the hell told you that load of crap? She asked. It was Anko-sensei. I knew it, Ino shouted. You should know better than to believe anything she says. She's crazy, remember. I told myself the same thing when she first started explaining. But, as she continued, her face changed. In fact, she looked as serious, almost like she was afraid. I don't think she was making any of it up, Sakura said. Ino dropped to the ground and crisscrossed her legs. She had to have been. I mean, honestly, what kind of singular force can have that kind of power aside from Kyuubi? None. That what? Especially if it wasn't a giant or something. I'm tellin' ya, that Anko-sensei is cracked, she stated. Sakura laced her hands together in worry. I know it sounds incredibly stupid and I don't want to believe it either. I really don't, but there's something about the whole thing that scares me half to death. I honestly think that she was telling the truth, she fretted. The platinum blonde sighed at her fellow Kunoichi's gullibility. Okay then, Sakura-chan. I'll play along and say she wasn't making the whole thing up just to scare you. If all of this actually did happen, then I don't see what you're so worried about when the Sannin took care of it already, she said with a bored expression. Sakura was silent as she stared at the ground. I mean, does it make any sense for you to get all gloom and doom about it when this Kuro thing is Ino pointed out. Sakura's worried sick expression never changed. Ugh, Sasuke-kun, could you please tell Sakura-chan that she's acting like a basket case for absolutely no reason? Ino huffed, getting nothing in response. Sasuke-kun. The purple-clad genin looked up and saw Sasuke sweating bullets, with a terribly concerned expression on his face. Oi, what's with you? Sakura, Sasuke said. Hi. The raven-haired Uchiha lifted his head and stared directly into Sakura's eyes. If you're right, and Anko wasn't making any of this up, then we're in big trouble, he said in a stern voice. Ino stared at the Uchiha in disbelief. AOW, Sasuke-kun. You're not seriously buying all of this malarkey, are you? She shouted. We may have our work cut out for us on this one, Sasuke said. Ino shifted left to right glances at both of her colleagues. Have you both gone insane? How can you be so certain that any of this is true, and even if it is, what have we got to worry about? She huffed again in a fluster. After a short silence, Sakura's head perked up. Wait a second. Don't you remember that one day, Ino, the one where everyone was starting to freak out and we all gathered on the cage monument, she recalled. The turquoise-eyed female nodded, despite her skepticism, probably just some coincidence. Have you ever felt anything so suffocating in your life? PSH. I feel like that when my father gets mad at me. So what? Ino persisted. But it was so terrifying. I haven't felt anything anywhere close to the amount of negative energy that felt that day. Now I remember it vividly. Sakura fretted more, growing a little edgy. Calm down, Sakura-chan. I felt it too, but then how can you be so certain that was safe at all? For all we know, it could have actually been Kuro who caused all of that ruckus, Sakura interjected. Feeling like she had run out of things to say, Ino sunk her forehead into her palm and groaned. You're hopeless, ya know that, she stated. Sasuke put his hand to his chin. Well, let's say you're right, and do everything we can to make sure that the past doesn't repeat itself, he suggested. I'm with you. I don't even want to think about what would happen if we don't, Sakura eagerly agreed. A wise choice indeed. All three genin whipped their attention to a tree that was next to them in an alerted manner. The guard was slightly lowered, however, when they saw Neji. Hyuga stepped from behind with his arms crossed. Neji-san, both Ino and Sakura recollected while Sasuke remained silent and stared at him. The pale-skinned Hyuga closed his eyes. I'd say, you're onto something, Sakura, he said. Your suspicions on this matter may be more accurate than you realize. This Kuro that you mentioned could actually still be alive, and my squad may have found evidence, albeit circumstantial, to confirm it, Neji informed. The young Haruno's face brightened with surprise. What kind of evidence? She asked. Seriously, Ino mumbled under her breath. You do remember when the western sector of the village was off limits for a couple of weeks, correct? My squadron and I decided to investigate, to see if there was anything that we were kept in the dark about, Neji said. Sakura gulped loudly. I see. So what did you find? She questioned hesitantly. Nothing. Ino smirked. There, ya see. There's nothing to worry about. But that's exactly the problem. We literally found nothing. No people, no activities, no tracks. Nothing, Neji explained. It was as though the place had been wiped clean of everything and everyone, frozen in time. Sasuke looked to the ground and thought deeply. HMPH. Seems rather suspicious if you ask me, he said. Indeed, Neji agreed. Hearing this information, Sakura now started to shiver with dread and Ino was finally starting to doubt herself on this, despite her attempts to hide it. You still think this is all some big coincidence? Ino-chan, the pink-haired Kunoiki said. It's just as Sasuke-kun said. We're in big trouble. Neji intervened at that last statement. While it would be wise to restrain from jumping to conclusions, we'd also do well to leave nothing to chance. We're not certain what's out there, he elaborated. Then what are we waiting for? Sasuke blurted out, gaining curious stares from everyone. We're doing no good by standing here. We have to alert the others and prepare for what might come our way. Wait. Sasuke looked at Sakura. What is it? He asked. I promised Anko-sensei that I wouldn't let any of this information leak anywhere outside the ears of us rookie graduates. We have to keep this on the low and gather the others in one spot so we don't risk it, she explained. Understood, Neji said. I'll inform Tenten. With that, the strong Hyuga vanished to carry out his word. All right, Ino. Go and tell your team to meet us here as soon as possible. Sakura and I will find the others, Sasuke ordered before he and Sakura vanished on a whim of their own. The still flustered Ino simply sat there with her chin resting on her fist. She really didn't want to go through with this because of how ridiculous the whole thing sounded. The platinum blonde grudgingly dragged herself up with a reluctant will to find Shikamaru and Choji. Battlefield High no Kuni. Blow. For. Blow. That was pretty much the most appropriate way to describe the searing fight between Kuro and Tsunade. The monster's relentless force and nerve-wracking tactics had the middle-aged Sannin in a serious state of desperation. So much so, that her fighting pace and prowess far exceeded even her own expectations. She fought like a champion, yet had a spot of trouble keeping her wits about her as she kept up with her enemy's movement. All of that, and Kuro was having the time of his life. Even Heck knew that taking it easy would be a mistake. He easily admitted that this wasn't nearly as fun as facing all three of the Sannin, but at least he was forced to put in some effort. As far as he was concerned, this was the perfect time to see what Tsunade was truly capable of, before he silenced her for good. Every time she had a chance, Tsunade cornered Kuro's movements with a flurry of sly attacks that left him on the defensive, which was just fine for him, all the more inviting for him to study her movements. Good. Very good. Such a massive difference between now and 2 decades earlier, Kuro inwardly raved, but I won't allow this to go on untested. On a whim, Kuro was able to break from the offensive cage and counter with several attacks of his own, once again leading to the all-popular blow-for-blow altercation. This forced Tsunade to increase her efforts even more, which was proving to be quite dangerous at that point. In a completely unpredictable moment, Kuro knocked her away to gain some distance. Grabbing a hold of herself at that moment and resisting a blind charge, Tsunade stood her ground and fell back into her fighting stance, hyperventilating. Kuro glared at her with that eerie smile of his just as a trail of blood leaked down the side of his mouth. He wiped it off with his thumb and widened his smile. Fantastic, Tsunade-chan. Your skills have greatly improved, he growled as he smeared his blood between his fingers, but one must wonder how long someone can keep such an effort up, before tiring out. Tsunade didn't answer, instead, trying to catch her breath and figure out another plan of attack. As I thought, I'm not getting anywhere fast. At this rate, it won't matter how much effort I put out, she thought as she finally caught her breath and rose a healing hand to her chest, and I'm almost out of chakra. I'd better watch my step. The blonde woman knew that she would have a terrible time making a difference, especially if her opponent could regenerate after every attack. Unfortunately, she had no time to deliberate on the matter. She perked her head up and saw that Kuro was gone. In an instant, the very same monster loomed over her with both of his hulking arms reeled back. Tsunade freaked out, threw caution to the wind and rose her own arms up, where Kuro's then plunged down. Their hands viciously connected in a brutal slop that had Tsunade's body sliding upon the ground, her feet being the only things drilling into it to stop her. With her eyes widened from shock and her teeth clenched from the sudden mind-bending effort, Tsunade constantly grunted as she held her position. Kuro half grunted out if half laughed as he used his monstrous strength to push against the hazel-eyed Sannin. Now let's really test your strength, shall we? Kuro roared before he pushed harder. Tsunade's expression slowly changed from what it was, to a look of sheer effort that threatened to break her if she let up for even a second. Blood veins steadily emerged throughout her body as she poured her strength into her arms and legs. Grah. Why? Are you still fighting, Kuro? Nragh doesn't make sense, Tsunade grunted. HRG. A meaningless creature like you wouldn't know my suffering. I will have my revenge. You and your worthless village will suffer a fate worse than death at my hand, and my hand alone. Kuro wreathed. With an explosion of strength, the red-haired cretin pushed down upon Tsunade, causing her arms to fold back. Soon her legs felt weak, and crumbled to the ground while trying incredibly hard to keep Kuro from crushing her. After I'm finished with you, I'll move on to your slut of an apprentice, Kuro declared with an evil smile. You won't be alone in death, Tsunade-chan. Tsunade's eyes widened tremendously before she tightened the grip she had upon Kuro's. She glared hellfire into the monster's eyes before she dug deep within herself to summon the strength she needed. As she did this, her legs regained balance and were able to stand again. Kuro's smile waned a bit as Tsunade regained her momentum, but started to frown when she actually pushed back. The vengeful brute increased his own efforts and left Tsunade at a standstill with her arms only half extended. You should have never allowed your apprentice to come here. That bit of foolishness on your part will only cause the death another one of your own, Kuro grunted. Upon those words, Tsunade roared with fury and tapped into more of her might, thus pushing her arms all the way up and bending Kuro's back slightly. His eyes widened as he could feel himself losing his own balance. You little. Before he could even finish that sentence, he felt his entire body being hoisted into the air as Tsunade carried him upon her shoulders. Their hands no longer interlocking. Running across the land at truly remarkable speed, the enraged blonde somersaulted and regained balance with just enough time to land her foot directly onto Kuro's tee, thus skidding across the ground. Expelling several choked writhes and furious grunts, the red-haired mare glared into Tsunade's soul as his head was grounded into the earth. Without mercy, the determined Sannin jumped off of her enemy before quickly latching onto his hair. She spun in a full circle before hurling Kuro away. He collided into a grounded boulder and landed on his knees. The moment he looked up, he saw a charging Tsunade. With a penetrating scowl on his face, Kuro balled a fist and stared at it. I think it's time I ended this. After that last sentence, Tsunade, who was charging at blurring speeds, threw a super momentum-powered punch. A punch that Kuro was able to catch within his palm. The impact sent a huge radial burst of force rippling onto the land, disintegrating the boulder and turning a large portion of the land flat. The relentless Tsunade attempted to drive her fist through Kuro's hand but to no avail as the monster remained adamant. Out of impulse, the blonde Sannin threw another punch with her other fist but was caught by her wrist. With a vicious growl, Kuro rose to his feet and held the writhing Tsunade at bay. Nraaaaa. I'll KU. I'll fin KU, Tsunade roared as she struggled against her enemy's GS. Even if you were capable, it would be impossible, but if not for your unfortunate condition, Kuro trailed off as he stuck his grotesquely long tongue out. It was at that moment that Tsunade witnessed the demented cur do something that made even her tremble. He bit off his tongue. The blonde Sannin gasped at the sudden action. Why you, freak, she whispered through her shocked state. The only thing Kuro did as a response was smile, with blood seeping and oozing from between his grueling fangs. Tsunade's eyes widened at the sight of the blood, that terrifying red liquid. Kuro could faintly feel her offenses weakening and his nasty smile grew. He began marching forward and pushing a reluctant and trembling Tsunade back. Let go of me, you rotten, filthy devil, Tsunade demanded on deaf ears. Intent on finishing the job, Kuro whipped and jerked his head wildly about before gaping his mouth open and dousing Tsunade in a torrent of his tainted blood. His eyes beamed red and his voice rumbled a horrible laughter that sent shivers down the blonde woman's spine as the blood littered her entire body. With her mind now overrun with terror, Tsunade's offense was completely destroyed as she stumbled back away from the smiling Kuro. She trembled as she stared at her hands with a terrified expression. B blood, she murmured with a shaky voice. Knowing that victory and his long-awaited revenge was now within his reach, Kuro laughed triumphantly as he picked up his previously discarded tongue from the ground. Staring at the oral appendix, the red-haired warrior reconnected it to its core and it quickly reattached itself. Once the numbness in his mouth settled, the freakish Kuro licked his entire face with his tongue and stared death at the trembling mass of F that was Tsunade. You are mine, he growled dangerously with mouse resolve. Konoha, Team 7 training ground. And that's the whole story, Sasuke said from within the group of his fellow graduates. There's a good chance that we might have to get our hands filthy with this one. Sakura was the next to speak. We need to dedicate ourselves to training or we may as well blend into the wall, she said. After hearing everything about something that wasn't even in the goddamn textbooks, the other Genin graduates reflected their own reactions to the news. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, Shikamaru stated with a nervous expression. Why would they keep such important information away from us? Seems like such a waste. I don't know, but, Choji began in a trembling mess, the whole thing's starting to freak me out. It's true that we've every reason to fret about this situation, Neji started as he leaned against a tree, but we mustn't allow it to cloud our judgment on the initial goal. Neji's right, Tenten agreed as she sat upon a branch of the very same tree. If we focus more on our training like Sakura said, we might all walk away from this with our lives. How can you all be so gullible? Ino huffed in sheer disbelief at what she was hearing. For all we know, this, Kuro, Bulls is just some kid's story that adults use to put the little brats to sleep. I don't buy it. Sasuke stood up. Look. You can believe what you want to believe. As for me, I want to live, so I'm going to train harder than ever, he declared with unmoving conviction. I'm with Sasuke on this one, Kiba said as he sat against one of the 3 training posts. There's no way that I'm gonna be some freak show's dinner. No freaking way. Akamaru barked in agreement. Ino sunk her head into both of her palms in even more disbelief. Please tell me that someone has enough sense to not be buying this crap, she mumbled to herself. Kiba turned an eye to the silent Hinata. Listen, when we get back, let's start training right away. Hinata, what's the matter? He asked. The lavender-haired Hyuga's facial expression had changed dramatically as she heard everything being told by Sakura and Sasuke. It was no longer the usual self-doubted downcast, rather a truly frightened and worried look. To Kiba, it really didn't suit her, so he opted to soothe her. Hey, Don't worry about a thing. If worse comes to worse, I'll be there, the short-haired dog lover reassured. No. The trembling Hinata choked out. What? It's not that. I'm worried, about Naruto-kun. At this, Sasuke, Sakura and Ino's heads perked up in realization. The pink-haired member of the group had just remembered that he had left with Jiraiya. Kiba raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah. I forgot about that little S. Where the hell is he anyway? He asked. Gone. Neji answered out of the blue. He left with someone to find our new cage, one of the legendary Sannin. They've been gone for about a week now. Kiba's face lifted with surprise. They've picked a new Hokage already. Naruto's still out there, he barked. Now he could see why Hinata was so worried, and Ino finally found a reason to believe all of this. To be honest, neither Sakura, Sasuke nor Ino had thought of that, and now their hearts pumped faster with every second that passed. He's out there. He's out there with that Mo monster on the loose, Hinata continued, growing more and more scared for Naruto. He hasn't come back. What if? Hey, no. Don't even say it, Hinata, Kiba shouted as he grabbed her arms. We assume nothing yet. Just give him a little more time and he'll be back. After a few more moments, Ino looked down at the ground as her mind raced. Now, more than ever, she wished that everything she had heard was a flat-out lie, especially if Naruto was still out there. A cold chill ran down her spine at her thoughts when they turned into fear-driven images of the gruesome possibilities. Sakura felt like an idiot for not stopping Naruto from leaving in the first place, but of course, how could she have known at the time? Sasuke, well, he pretty much looked how he always looks whenever he's thinking about something. Mainly, what would happen if Naruto ever bumped into Kuro? I hadn't even considered that, Ino whispered. Right, Naruto's the only one of us who doesn't know about him, Sasuke assumed, if he runs into him by some chan. Don't say another word. He'll be just fine, he's stronger now, Sakura reassured despite her own soul-wrenching doubts and fears. Like Kiba said, all we have to do is wait. Then you'll be washed and valuable trainin' time, a shaky old voice. All who heard the voice whipped their attention to the source and saw a mysterious old man standing a couple of meters away from them. He wore a gold-colored robe with a black trim and a red shirt tucked underneath. The sleeves of the robe were very large in size. He wore comfortable and loose-fitting pants that matched the color of his robe. The top of his head was shining bald, but the back of his head carried long, straight hair that was grayer than the dullest tomorrow. His wrinkled face was practically covered with a large and malevolent beard. He also carried a peculiar white sack over his shoulder and a strange-looking cane in his hand. His eyes were closed and a pair of small eyeglasses hung upon his large nose. You young'uns seem to be on the right track. But don't miscalculate. Things are more dangerous than they appear, the old man said in a seemingly easy-going tone. Sasuke, Neji, Shino and Kiba looked at the guy suspiciously, but Sakura immediately recognized him. Hey, it's you, she said in the sudden remembrance. You're the last person I saw when Naruto left. The bearded man made his way to the group and pushed up his glasses. Hey. You remember me? Hell, that's a first in my book. Usually young'uns don't recognize those who blend into the background. What a grand discovery, he said in that joyous, and often humorous, old man voice. Who the hell are you? Kiba abruptly demanded. Silence fell upon the old man. Oh, heel to the no, you didn't just talk to Gigi like that, he warned as he tightened the grip on his cane. Painful flash forward. With Hinata holding an ice pack over his head, a steaming and cranial bruised Kiba gave the old man his full attention, as did the other genin of the group. Alright, now that Gigi got your attention, I'd better tell ya why I'm here, he began as he stroked his beard. Y'all seem to know a lot about the events 20 years ago. Ya mind tellin' me who informed y'all? GG Street USD. The expressions of all the genin and noticed that Sakura's was the most edgy. You. Pink one. Who told you? He questioned immediately. Sakura's head perked up with surprise at how easily he was able to tell that it was her that received the info first. But she looked back down to the ground and remained silent at first. Don't worry about nothin'. I won't say or do anything to endanger your secrecy, Gigi assured. I can't. I promised. I understand that, child. But this may be for the good of us all, just know that. With a little more hesitation. Sakura opened her mouth to speak, that is until Sasuke stopped her. Now hold on second, the Uchiha cut in, you still never told us who you were. How are we supposed to trust you? Well, for starters, if you've been paying any attention, then you'd know that the name's GG, son, the gold-clad man stated. Second, you can trust me because we're after the same thing, salvation. Sasuke raised a curious eyebrow to this. Oh, don't be giving GG such a skeptical look, I can see all too well that you're as lost as the rest of us, GG said, you don't need to hide it from me. What are you talking about? The grey-haired man slowly eased his way down to the ground and sat with criss-crossed legs with his cane upon his lap. Now that you all know about Kuro, you should also be well aware that no amount of training could ever close the gap between ya. His powers are far too great for any of you to comprehend, GG explained further. If you're thinking that it's that easy, then you're setting yourselves up. You're talking an awful lot about this Kuro. Can we be sure that he actually exists and he's not just some myth? Neji asked as he streaked the old man with the utmost care. The aged traveler remained silent for but a few moments before answering, trust me, kid. He's real, and he's still alive and kicking, he said with the slightest of grimaces. Neji squinted his eyes and stayed alert about GG, he doesn't seem to be lying, and his aura is calm and open, he speculated. GG's only looking out for y'all's best interest. I know it's just a matter o' time before you all meet him. There ain't no escaping it. Now a little more convinced that she could trust the old man, Sakura looked up to Sasuke, who hesitantly nodded with approval. It was Anko-sensei, she told me everything, Sakura grudgingly admitted. Oh, she crazy. I know, Ino blurted out of the blue. But she was also telling ya the cold hard truth. Kuro does exist, and he's on the prowl as we speak, the bearded old man said. If you're still wondering, he was the reason why the western sector of this village was off limits. Everyone's ears perked when hearing this info. While y'alls was beating the s out of each other during the Chunin exam finale, Kuro was having his merry way with the people here. GG began as he pushed up his glasses. With most of the Jonin and Chunin preoccupied with the action, he took advantage of the situation and went on a feeding frenzy to boost his powers, with fantastic results. Everyone shared their own reactions to this news before GG continued. But had it not actually been for Anko herself, he most likely wouldn't have stopped there. Thankfully, she showed up when she did. Wait a second, Ino jumped in, Anko-sensei fought that monster, all by herself. Hey, don't sound so impressed blonde one, she didn't get very far. It's a bloody miracle that she's still alive in the first place. You can thank the Mednin and the, watcher Markol Anbu for that little pest, GG explained. Shikamaru finished studying the guy and was barely able to decide that he could trust him, a little. I'm guessing that you've been keeping tabs on this guy. If so, then I don't suppose you know where he went afterwards, the young Nara suggested. I do, GG nodded, he went hunting for them Sanin, and a boy called Naruto. Everyone nearly gasped at that last piece of info. Hinata nearly crushed the ice pack she held into Kiba's head when she heard that. Only after a pain-stricken grunt did she ease up, but now she was nearly driven to tears. I knew it, she thought to herself. What in the whole wide world would he want with Naruto? Sakura exclaimed as she shot to her feet. What did he ever do to him? Kuro and Naruto don't know each other personally, but that's not the point. He's chosen him and he's doing everything in his power to get what he wants from him, GG explained further. But that doesn't make any sense to me. Naruto has nothing to do with that monster, the pink-haired Kunoiki yelled. At first, no, he didn't. Kuro didn't even know of Naruto's existence, until one fateful day, about a month ago to be exact, the old man emphasized. At hearing this, Sakura's eyes widened with recognition. At first she didn't understand, until she remembered the day she and everyone else in the village heard the fearsome roar of Kyubi no Yuko when he was temporarily set free. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.